Hello, Mr. Winfried Vermes, and welcome to the presentation on your requested information given by DiNardo Business Consulting and presented by Managing Partner Justin DiNardo. This is our presentation on the competitive landscape estimates and positioning for the Holland Sweetener Company in the Canadian and European aspartame markets. This is a quick overview of what we're going to be discussing today, starting with our summary, moving towards a little bit of context for the problem before going in specifically to what we're solving for today, before modeling out the costs of NutraSweet and your company, and then progressing into the bottom line and the different payoffs for different situations, and then finally ending with a short disclaimer and a period of questions. So the DiNardo Business Consulting Group, upon reviewing the documents provided by Mr. Winfried, has recommended that the Holland Sweetener Company continue to penetrate the European and Canadian aspartame markets as peacefully as possible. This can be achieved by communicating and signaling effectively to rivals and other market participants and as controlled and predictable a way as possible in order to ensure there is no price war or aggressive tactics used by any parties. We also recommend that a price war is not optimal given by this short payoff matrix table on the side, and if you are able to enter under normal competition, we do predict that the Holland Sweetener Company will do very well and will have comfortable margins that will enable them to be successful even with small problems. So Mr. Vegas, this slide just goes over some of the history of sweeteners, starting with ancient Rome. People began to already use crushed grapes and other sweets to create jelly-like substances for use in food and beverages. In 1878, sirachen was discovered, and then almost 100 years later, in 1967, there was the discovery of Ace K and aspartame, the product in question, and then it wasn't until the 1980s that neotame was discovered. Naturally, these different products are judged on the factor they are sweeter than sugar and on price per pound, and the market currently competes in both price and quantity. Another issue that sweeteners have always had is that people have struggled to find sweeteners that are safe, and often sweeteners will be on the market for a limited amount of time before some safety or health issue is found, and we urge the Holland Sweetener Company to consider the safety implications of aspartame. So at the time of aspartame's discovery, sirachen was still being used as a sweetener, which was a derivative of petroleum and about 300 times sweeter than sugar of equal weight. In 1965, James Schlatter was credited with discovering aspartame when he was working on an anti-ulcer drug for a pharmaceuticals company that would eventually become NutraSweet. And by licking his finger, he noticed that it was sweet. So aspartame is a white powdery substance made of L-aspartic acid and L-phenylalanine with a small amount of ethanol mixed in. It has the same caloric content as sugar. It's about 180 times as sweet, but it doesn't cause tooth decay like sugar, but is also unstable when exposed to high temperatures like it would be if you were to bake with it, and it also has a poor shelf life in liquids. This is significant because the discovery of aspartame led the market, and then by 1981 the sweetener market was worth an estimated $110 million in the United States and only grew and expanded out from there. At the time, although aspartame was about 3 times as expensive, Searle's equal product did beat out Suracan, and we'll discuss that a little bit later on in the presentation. So the company that Schletter worked for, G.D. Searle & Co., was formed in 1908, but by 1968 was a Fortune 500 pharmaceuticals company. Upon his discovery of aspartame, that company immediately explored the sweetener business and obtained its first patent for aspartame as a sweetener in 1970 and a blend of aspartame with Suracan in 1973. The FDA was able to give approval for these for this product, but then banned and then reinstated the product later, making it one of its kind in history and including to this day. Beyond that, G.D. Searle & Co. spun off its sweetener division, NutraSweet, in 1982, and is also credited with developing its branded ingredient marketing strategy, which meant that companies using NutraSweet aspartame would get a discount for exclusivity, and by using aspartame as a pure sweetener and not a blend of it with some other sweetener. And in return, they would gain access to displaying the highly recognized red NutraSweet aspartame swirl on their products and advertising. And so this helped NutraSweet gain the business of both Pepsi and Coke by being able to leverage that swirl on Pepsi's branding, who they were able to set up a contract with first. These contracts were estimated to be around $90 a pound at the time of signing, and led to NutraSweet being able to dominate the soft drink market, which took up around 80% of NutraSweet's sales revenue. Other segments included the tabletop market at around 15%, and the largest market by far was in the United States. Monsanto eventually acquired the NutraSweet division in 1985 through its acquisition of G.D. Searle & Co. for $2.8 billion. And today, their annual sales of aspartame reach about 711 million. Down here in the bottom of the slide, we have a timeline of patent expiry, which should give a good timeline for market entry. So we at Donardo Business Consulting would like to just give a quick background on your own company, Mr. Winfried, so that you understand what kind of information we're dealing with. So we understand that the Holland Sweetener Company was founded in 1985 as a joint venture between DSM and Tissot, specifically to compete with NutraSweet in the aspartame market. So Tissot, as a Japanese chemical producer, was formed in 1935, and DSM was a Dutch chemicals producer with about a third government interest. We understand that DSM would be responsible for providing raw materials, would work with the traditional process of manufacturing, and bring to the table European expertise. We are also aware that Tissot was leveraging a different form of manufacturing of aspartame using a different catalyst. We're also aware of the 500-ton production capacity aspartame plant in the Netherlands that is intended to be used as an initial penetration into the market, for which you were granted a $35 million loan from the government to work on this project. We're also aware of the antitrust litigation currently going through the European Commission, and at this time we're going to choose to not consider or speculate the outcomes of this litigation, as it may have significant effect on the outcome, and the results can vary too widely for comfortable expectations. We would also like Mr. Winfried to make you aware of all the different alternatives that are currently or have been in the market before. So this chart here quickly lays out some of the different alternatives of sweeteners available, starting with aspartame here at the top, which has a sweetness 180 times sweeter than sugar, which is surprisingly unremarkable when compared to some of the alternatives like allatame or sucralose. And later on, we will encourage the Holland Sweetener Company to explore different alternatives as a diversification strategy to be used against NutraSweet. So with some of that background information, we'd now like to take a look at the specific problem that Donato Business Consulting has been tasked with solving for you. So the specific question that we're looking at today is going to be of competition in the European and Canadian markets for aspartame, given two different scenarios. And here on this slide, we have listed out the scenario of normal competition and then price war. And in each of these sections here is the expected payoff for each company in these different scenarios. And this payoff matrix will represent the benefits from each company in each scenario on a variable or per unit basis times an expected quantity. So this matrix does not include anything outside of that. And then later on, once again, we will consider sort of complications or outside costs of this structure that's been set up. We recognize that the plant will be operational 2 years after it's contracted to be built. So these payoffs are represented in future values in 1989. So depending on the discount factor that you'd like to apply may change the expected payoffs that you may have. But as for now, we will assume that your discount rate is parallel to the discount rate that NutraSweet would also have, and so it can be easily eliminated. So we would like to mention two quick things here. The first of which is, once again, to do your own independent analysis of the different fixed costs available with these kinds of projects. Understand that later on we'll discuss estimated variable costs for your firm and for NutraSweet, and we highly recommend lean operations and cost savings in your fixed costs to become as competitive as possible with your targeted rival NutraSweet. We also urge you to consider other more creative strategic decisions, including, once again, alternative sweeteners to aspartame that may have certain advantages, partnership with NutraSweet or any other external partner, either domestic or abroad, and to, once again, seek other actions that would help to avoid aggressive competition or competition on the basis of price. So we'd now like to take a look at the estimated costs that Donato Business Consulting has laid out for the Holland Sweetener Company and for NutraSweet. So NutraSweet also, after their partnership with Ajinomoto, a Japanese food and chemical manufacturer, which is one of the largest companies in that Japanese industry and is a leader currently in the MSG market. So we would just like to show that NutraSweet does have 4 factories in total manufacturing aspartame, has a minimum efficient scale of 2,000 tons, and so this makes it very difficult to compete on the basis of quantity. Their Harbor Park factory, located right here, is also not in use, but represents a threat to flood the market upon competition based on quantity. We do estimate also NutraSweet's shipping costs to be at around 15 to 20 cents a pound, and so that's one reason we expect that their factories and manufacturing plants are somewhat concentrated. We understand that NutraSweet has made available information that between the years of 1982 and expected 92 that they will shrink their manufacturing costs by 70%. So from there we can take away an 11% per year cost savings through experienced manufacturing aspartame, and this is quite significant, and at Donato Business Consulting we cannot understate the importance of time in the market manufacturing, and so this is part of the reason why we urge the Holland Sweetener Company to begin manufacturing as soon as possible in order to take full advantage of these expected cost savings. These savings will give NutraSweet an expected variable cost in 1986 of $8.82, and this is the number that we continue to use through our models. Donato Business Consulting understands that Tissot brought with it a patented process for making aspartame, which is cheaper, and so we've estimated those cost reductions to be about 5% cheaper than the base level of $20.40 per pound, and then we've also given a 20% cost savings through technology changes from 1982 until 1986, which we believe are significant. Even with these cost savings, we do estimate about near double average variable cost for your company, Mr. Winfried, and so urge you to be as lean as possible in your operations and to take caution and plan very carefully each step that you take in this competition. So from here we'd like to present and explain to you how we've come up with our bottom line payoffs. Donato Business Consulting has forecasted this following market demand schedule as individually in Canada and Europe, and then also as a sum total to be 1,105 tons of aspartame in 1986, which would allow almost more than double the expected capacity that your new factory will have. And so going forward in our assumptions, we do assume that given normal or accommodated entry into the aspartame market, that you would be able to operate your facility at full capacity. And so this slide here, Mr. Winfried, lays out the different expectations that we have given the two scenarios that you've asked for. So under a price war, it would be expected that NutraSweet lower their price to be equal to or insignificantly larger than their average variable cost. And so that would mean for Holland Sweetener Company about an $8 loss per pound that you will produce. And so because of that, we recommend that given a price war situation that you do not produce, and while irrelevant for your own calculations, we believe would lead to NutraSweet producing for the entire market. However, that number would be hard to come up with as we expect demand for aspartame to be higher given significantly lower price. That is very difficult to forecast. In the situation of normal competition, we do expect that you will be able to operate your factory at full capacity, and that NutraSweet will produce whatever is remaining in demand at a competitive price, which at this time we will not choose to estimate, but can be thought of to be in line with current prices. So in these slides here, we just have a summary once again of the expected variable costs for NutraSweet to be 605 times the price minus a flat 5,300. And on this slide here, what we have is the same thing for the Holland Sweetener Company. We do expect less per output here with a higher flat subtraction. And this slide here, Mr. Winfried, represents the full laid out payoff matrix depending on what you decide to do, showing normal competition, price war payoffs for each company, and then also in the situation where the Holland Sweetener Company decides to abort their factory production and to not enter the market here, in which case we expect NutraSweet to be a full market monopoly. As you can see here, the best case scenario for both companies is to compete under normal competition in order to maximize the sum of your payoffs. And right here, as we wrap up, I'd like to share with you some concerns that Donata Business Consulting has and a word of caution moving forward in your dealings with NutraSweet. So we believe all of our estimates to be accurate and reasonable, or as accurate and reasonable as they possibly can be, but we do give room for unexpected kind of black swan events that seem to follow NutraSweet in their dealings, such as the reinstatement of aspartame by the FDA after its ban, the suspicious failure of Siracan in 1982 when it was almost twice as sweet as aspartame and only 1/3 of the cost, and NutraSweet's equal product was still able to succeed over it. We're also concerned with some of the anti-competitive behavior in NutraSweet's contracts with the soft drink industry and urge you to take caution competing on that basis. And then also that NutraSweet seems to be very quick on their feet, and marketing innovations can be are an example of something that has happened in the market that has been very difficult to predict. And so I thank you for your time today, Mr. Winfried, and I would urge you to direct any further questions to your representative email, and to have a very good rest of your day, sir.